carrying over?
That's all right, it's not added across right.
No, because they're added up by quarter, net gain or loss at the bottom.
Yeah, because you're gonna have expenses in there, and you're gonna have revenue. Sometimes you have expenses where you don't have expenses when you have
Right.
revenue. That's why.
Well, with Steve, rather than, you
Yep.
know,
Okay.
No, it works, I mean, it
I
works.
got to that point, and I said, well, now I can go and I can take all these little bits and pieces and throw them in there, and I try to keep it simple. And said, it looks to me like there's enough margin to deal with the small items that would have, might come up. Plus, we use the conservative estimate for the ALS fund.
Okay.
So, questions?
On the revenue numbers, those are only revenue numbers when we respond to ALS within North Reading only.
No,
We go mutual aid,
And that, those
Oh,
numbers
they should-
are included, would be included in that, you think, in your,
I don't know how
Well,
we.
right now, we don't provide it, so
no.
if we did, it would be
This was
additional.
so that's not, so that's,
No.
I guess, the point
No,
why I'm
and
bringing
keep
it
in
up.
mind, this is just an average set of numbers, right? I mean,
No,
yeah.
but I don't think you can, to go through this presentation without at least bringing that point up, that there is, this is super conservative, I guess,
Yes.
for lack of a better
Yeah.
term.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
In fact, one set of that equipment was shown on there for Q3 11, which really funded we would pay anyway. It's not really for new ILS employees, it's for a replacement employee. And so it's really conservative.
Yeah.
So, any more questions on that? Very important. I figured that after tonight's presentation, a bunch of questions and more information required, what I thought we'd like to do is, before we get to the fiscal year, have the board approve the plan, whether it's this plan or a modified plan. So we have another opportunity to discuss it at the town meeting. We applied for ALS certification on August 1st. Now, this is non-binding from the point of view that, if the thing blows up, we just don't go forward. We'd established accreditation with local hospitals by September 1st. And we currently have an EMS accreditation with Melrose, Lakewood. And this would be presuming an expansion of that. And whether or not we look to another hospital, I guess, is something we can do in the future. Key, though, is that we negotiate the new fire contract implementing ALS no later than November 30th. We have a decision point to make, and that is, if we're really gonna go through this, and we've gotta jump that hurdle, right? We wanna do it before we bring in a replacement for Cook in January. Because in reality, we already have filled that position if we're not going forward come July 1st. So we'd maintain a four-man shift, if in fact it falls apart. So I think in talking with Barry and Mike and the chief, they felt comfortable that that was a good target date. Any comments?
I'd like to be able to quantify it before you jump into it. I'd like to know if we can come to an agreement with the union and with the current staff to ensure that they're on board. See how close we are. I have no idea where we're at, where their heads are at yet. To me, you're asking
Well,
us.
I'm not sure they know either.
No,
at this
I know,
point.
Well-
but you're asking us within a month here now to approve a plan on a
Well,
wish
I
of
mean,
women
it's
and
a plan-
maybe.
It's a plan with contingencies.
No, I understand that, so.
And I think,
I don't know what the hurry is. We're still gonna have to staff to the level that we need anyway. We don't have minimum manning in the contract, but in order to operate the current fashion,
Yeah, but
we have to have four on.
We're already doing that, we made that decision.
Right, we
The
have to.
question is, when we get to this January of next year, right, if we don't have a negotiated contract, or we've decided not to go forward with it, we wouldn't replace
I understand that,
the retiree.
but I'm not sure yet, nor is anybody at this point, that we're applying for ALS certification. And when we do that, we're saying, this is our plan and this is what we're doing. And we can't honestly say that yet, because we don't have a feel for the current workforce and whether or not they're willing to buy into the program and what the costs are gonna be. So I think we're
No, I
putting,
think we can say there's
I
a,
think we're putting the cart before the horse a little bit
I-
here, whereby we don't know whether we're going to be in a position to implement it or not. I think we should go into negotiations with the intention of moving forward on this.
Right.
With the
First
But
of
it
all-
delays-
First of all, that,
No, I know,
that
it-
doesn't preclude us from sitting down tomorrow. This is kind of a cutoff date. If we don't
No, I
have a
understand that.
contract by then.
But I'm not comfortable yet moving forward, looking for certification, if I don't know if we can implement it, if we can implement it or not.
That's a requirement for the license anyway,
Yeah.
What is?
that the union and the town have an agreement.
Okay. So that
It
needs to be
doesn't-
done.
It doesn't prevent you from making the applications.
We have to have an agreement. Agreement dating what?
Stating that the union and town are agreeing to the plan, together agree to the plan.
But it-
which we did when we went out to hire these two new men.
No, that was not, because I specifically asked.
Which is contingent upon.
I
whether we get-
specifically asked, why would we go and hire someone with paramedic credentials if we're not gonna utilize them? To do so would be unfair to the individual coming in, if we're
I
not gonna.
think,
do it
I
in the
think what's
program.
being said, if I can finish, is that if we, in the union, like we did for these two paramedics, show an intent to move forward, it doesn't commit us to move forward, because there are these contingencies that we have to come to some agreement on.
What's the hurry? Why can't we come to the agreement first? And then move
It
forward?
just, I think, quite honestly, it just delays the process. It's May 24th,
You're on the same
what's
timeline,
proposed,
you're on the same timeline, but at least you know what you're into and what we can agree on and what we have agreed on, rather than hoping.
I
to
think
come
it
to
just
some
moves
agreement
the, I
and then
think,
having
I
to pull
think
the
it
plug
moves
on it
the,
in
I think it
January.
moves the timeline, it continues to move us forward. If we can put something together, it shows there's the intent for the union in the town to move forward towards ALS, put that in the application, get the application process started. I don't see any harm in doing that. At the same time, the application process moves along, the negotiation process moves along. The hope is we can come to some agreement with the union. If we wait until we come to the agreement with the union, it just delays the implementation of ALS, and it delays the town receiving revenue for providing an ALS service to this community, which isn't being provided by our men currently, which I think the community as a whole would appreciate, knowing that if they need the service is there within moments. You don't have to wait for action. And I would venture to say that the majority of the population out there doesn't realize today that when they call for ambulance service, they're not getting ALS. But in terms of a timeline and keeping this process moving forward, we're May 24th. I think what the chair has proposed that we as a board can kick this around for another month. I don't think it's unfair that, or unreasonable that June 24th, he said, is a date for us to either vote yea or nay on moving forward. It doesn't commit anyone. But if we can move the timeline forward, it gets us to the end game sooner rather than later, whether it's up or down.
I think it gets us to the same point, other than maybe on a billing status. The only thing that changes here is possible revenue stream. Whereas if you get the certification in August, you can start potentially billing some of the runs that you have at ALS rather than the BLS rate. That's the only thing, the only difference here. Because come November 30th.
No,
under this
what I
proposal,
think what you're failing to
Let me
consider,
finish,
Mr.
let me
O'Leary,
finish,
is that,
Let me finish.
well,
Let me finish.
I'd
You
like to
interrupted me.
finish.
You interrupted me. All right? To me, the timeline is the same. We want to have something in place, dead sure, the 1st of January. As to whether or not we're going to move forward with ALS. We're going to
So it
Same
is-
thing, so the timeline's the same.
No, it's,
The only
I
difference.
I differ with you,
You
and
know,
sorry to
if we're
interrupt you,
going
but
in-
what you're
going in
failing
with
to
the same
realize,
intent.
you
I'd
feel,
like to know what the cost
what
is
you're
gonna be
feel-
ahead of time. I would like to know if it can be implemented. I
What
would
you're
like to know if
feeling-
we have everybody on board, and, you know, as a taxpayer, I'd like to know what's
well,
gonna cost.
I think anyone can step in the way of this and say, okay, we're gonna do this first, we're gonna do this first, we're gonna do this first. We're never gonna get to the end game whether we can come to an agreement or not. And what you're failing to realize in your timeline that you set up, there's a time lag in terms of application and receiving certification. So if we wait until we come to an agreement with the union, it's just gonna delay that process. So now we're looking at possibly putting this off until sometime in, later than January of 2011.
It appears to me that there's 1 month difference between application and for certification and establishment of accreditation with local hospitals, based upon the time.
That's application, but
Thank you.
you're not considering how long it takes from application stage.
Well, look at
to-
your revenue stream. You're assuming, based on the revenue stream, you're gonna have something flowing in here rather quickly, right?
Well, the BLS.
But that's assuming
What else we
applic,
can do anyway.
Right.
We can do
That-
that
that-
anyway.
That's what it tells you.
That's a no-brainer.
That's what it tells you, it doesn't tell you ALS.
So, I'm not missing anything here. The
But the app-
BLS rates, we can change. We can change that, so the revenue stream's the same.
it's your approach, if you want to move it forward or not.
It's not a question of moving, I'm in favor of moving it forward, it's just that the approach is exactly it, you know? I'd like to know and quantify the cost and whether or not it's feasible. Can we come to an agreement? And what is the cost of the town going to be in order to implement it? I like to know that ahead of time. That's all, I just like to know that before.
Well, I
I'm
guess
committed to moving it forward. I'm committed to continue to talk about it. I'm committed to get it done.
So what's the harm in applying for the certification if both the union and the town agrees they have the intent and they wish to move forward? What's the
The
harm in?
devil's in the details.
What's the harm? I feel to realize what the harm is, or the negative impact in applying for the ALS certification in a more timely fashion than what you're proposing. I don't see the downside. I honestly don't. I could be proven wrong, but I,
One step further, Steve. You know, we've met with members of the fire department, two of which are members of local fire. Remember the chief, we've had a member of finance committee. We've had a very open and transparent discussion.
Yeah, no, I
And we
understand.
talked about, in a meaningful way, the hurdles, the issues, what we can afford to do and can't do. And
I would like to
you
see, I'd
yourself-
like to see those shared.
You yourself wanted to move this thing along.
Absolutely.
You wanted this report done a couple months
Months
ago.
ago.
January, I think.
Months
January,
ago.
And now it
January.
sounds
I actually
like
wanted
you
it
wanna
done
slow
a
things
year ago.
down.
I wanted it a year ago, March, is what I wanted to do, was enter into discussions a year ago.
Right, so we're
March.
moving it, so why you want to put the brakes on it?
I'm not putting the brakes on it at all. It's just a question of when do you commit to things?
There's no commitment.
And
Where's the
this is
commitment?
a process of
Where's the
getting
commitment?
some paperwork started. We already made somewhat of a commitment. We hired 2 ALS people.
Give a couple hands up.
We've already hired them. We're giving them job offers, as far as I know.
I think
I had a hand up by. Who?
Captain Galvin, I thought
Captain Nash.
Captain Nash had his hand up too, but I think he's, someone answered this question, I think.
I think that Bob hit it right in the nose tonight here, that you have made the step in the right direction headed towards the ALS program. I think what Steve fails to grasp onto here is, we're moving forward, at least in some tangible manner, that you can hang your hat on, so when it comes time to file your paperwork, you can say, well, this is what we've done. We've taken a step forward to do this. Nothing would come back to bite us any worse than hiring the wrong tool for the box. Because the cost for that is literally $1 million plus. You get a guy that's simply not automatic. You know, you've got to keep moving towards this until you decide to shoot it out of the air. And you have done it. You're headed that way now. You're headed the right direction. If it turns out in January or February or whatever that you're not gonna do it, then we go back and revert to the same old age-old hiring practice. And basically crawl back in the hole, because you're never gonna be positioned any better than you are now.
And I haven't missed the boat on that, and my hat is still hung on that
Well,
post.
yeah,
Because the thing is,
we're entitled to
because
lie.
you know, I supported moving forward with the hiring that we did, that we're doing, right? But again, I just wanted it to be clear to the individuals that are coming on board that it's still in a state of flux. I didn't want to be
That's understandable.
disingenuous to the
Yeah,
individuals
right.
taking on.
They've been
And
told.
I was told that they were informed of that, so eyes wide open, which is what, I just want to be sure that everybody's